Du, Damodar, magst du vielleicht mal kurz? Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Gopi Janavalabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Vrajajanaranjana Jaya Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Jaya Vrajajanaranjana Jaya Vrajajanaranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Radha Madhava ki. Krishna, so thank you very much for being so. Didn't expect so many people, but it's very wonderful. So I hope I may serve you to the best of my capacity. We're trying to speak some Vāmanadeva Katha. Yesterday we had a wonderful Katha class by Gaurupa Prabhu, who brought many interesting points about the whole story. The topic I chose to address is the events that led to the appearance of Vāmanadeva, since there's, if you look at the 8th canto, actually it's almost the 8th canto is gradually leading to, what you can see it like this, to the appearance of Vāmanadeva. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimidandasya Ganandana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamayam Nadati Svavarantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vagishayasya Vadane Lakshmiyariyasya Chavakshasi Yasya Te Hridaye Samvit Tam Narasimham Aham Bhaje Pralada Hridayaladam Bhaktavidyavidram Sharatindurachim Vande Parindra Vandanam Harim. So, the appearance day is also called Vāmanadeva. I was a bit perplexed. I was asking also some devotees, but my being perplexed could not be resolved fully, since today we observe Ekadashi, and still apparently it is Dwadashi, or maybe sometimes there are some astrological differences. So it fits together today's topic with how we observe Ekadashi or Dwadashi, since maybe some of you might remember, shortly in the Kirtan we also mentioned it, how Aditi, the mother of Vāmanadeva, observed the vow of Dvadashi, Payovrata. And this is one aspect I would like to first address. Whenever Krishna appears, it is also highlighted in the Lagu Bhagavatam by Rupa Goswami, he has some agents that make this appearance possible. It might be his own expansions, it might be even an element, or it might be devotees like his parents. And we have the parents of Kashyapa Muni as the father and Aditi as the mother. And in the 8th canto it is described how in the different manvantaras, it means one duration of a reign of a Manu, there is always a particular set or particular number of personalities established in the universal order, so to speak. Certain types of demigods, certain types of sages, certain types of Prajapatis, and so on. So it is described in that Manvantara where Vāmanadeva appeared, Kashyapa Muni was one of the 7 sages. There are always 7 sages present within each Manvantara who benefit the universe by their auspicious influence. And there are also different types of demigods, and one are the Adityas, and Aditi is coming in the line of these demigods. So very divine personalities, and they have the function also of being Prajapatis. Praja means as much as progeny. They populate the universe, so to speak. And we know that from Aditi, the demigods come, and then there's Diti, where the demons also originate from, or like being brought into the existence of the universe. So in these parents, they are very special souls, and they also perform particular auspicious and powerful bhakti activities so that the Lord appears in their presence. And Srila Prabhupada points out always, since it is common, particularly in the Indian area, of course, in our circles geographically, maybe also, that there are particular personalities who claim to be incarnations or avatars of God or Krishna. And the question is how to prove that. Is it enough to show some little mystic opulence or being very charismatic? It turns out many of these personalities turn to some hypnotic skills also to influence the mind of their followers, and then they believe, yes, it's God. Or like some can show some what we would call tricks, some little magic tricks that might be very impressive to those who don't have like much transcendental knowledge. And Prabhupada says, okay, if this is truly an incarnation of God, then it must be mentioned in Shastra where does he took birth, or like it must be mentioned the place of birth and the parents. It said everything is given in Shastra. Every incarnation of Krishna is being presented with the place of birth and also parents that are the male and female that give birth to Krishna. So here we have Kashyapa Muni and Aditi. And why did Aditi ask Vishnu to appear is a whole story brightly that starts actually quite a few chapters before in the 8th canto. The 8th canto is giving us a few pastimes that actually are chained together. And one pastime we will shortly hear is the churning of the milk ocean, which is a very interesting pastime. And also in due course we will hear actually how Vishnu appears so frequently. It's amazing. Sometimes we think, yeah, once in a yuga, what is this? That's so many lifetimes, God knows what. But actually, if you read the Bhagavatam, he appears almost constantly, at least in the realm of the demigods. He has to interfere or protect or to save his devotees. And he appears in different forms. It happened once that Indra, the king of heaven, who is on one side a very elevated personality, and Garuda Prabhu was mentioned last time, how it's interesting how he's usually always connected with some scandals or wrong behavior that make him rather infamous than famous, but he is at the same time a very powerful demigod. And it happened that he insulted the great sage Durvasa Muni. And Indra often does that because he is prone to pride. Imagine you would be the king of the heavenly planets. You are King Indra, so there might be some chance to feel proud about it, to have this power. Let's also consider, like, if a living entity takes birth in the heavenly planets as a devata, as a divine being, automatically in your genetics, so to speak, you have all mystic opulences practically. Without that, you have to do something for it. This preparation work is done in a human form of body, perhaps where you perform austerities. So you are naturally equipped with these powers, like manifesting or controlling the elements, or traveling with the speed of mind, or changing forms, or like controlling the minds of others. So many things that are very powerful. The demigods have that. They naturally, depending on what rank of demigod, they might have a little less, and some have a little more. But in general, they have that. And also, if you take birth there, you don't have to go through the trouble of being a baby. You know? Sometimes, of course, for the parents, there are many cute things connected. Oh, you're a baby. But a baby is simply struggling with so many things. You can't control any bodily function, and people don't understand you because you can't speak. And then your teeth push through slowly and painfully, and so many other things. So, but there they said, this is skipped. You take birth, and more or less in an instant you grow up. That's it. And also when you die, you don't have to drag yourself through a whole long process of old age. You rather die when it's time, like this. So some of the advantages of being a heavenly being. So naturally you might feel, rather sublime and superior to other living entities. So that's a danger. That's why it's also not advised in the Vaishnava Shastras to aim for such position, because this might bring your downfall. So Indra received a garland from Durvasa Muni, who was actually in a good mood, which is sometimes also a bit, uncommon when you hear about Durvasa Muni. His name means difficult to stay with. Durvasa means he's a very intense person, difficult to stay with, and he easily kills you if you're unlucky, or curses you heavily. So he was in a good mood and wanted to give Indra a garland. He was wearing his own Mahaprasad, and Indra was on his elephant Airavata, passing through, and he was too proud to take this garland on himself, and he gave it to his elephant on the trunk. And the elephant, not knowing what to do with the garland, he just threw it in front of him and stepped over with his legs, And just imagine Durvasa Muni seeing that, noticing that, got quite angry. And since Indra is the head of the demigods, he practically affected all the demigods with the curse, because he cursed him and all the demigods to lose all their prowess, all their opulence, all their power. So then they were made vulnerable for the attack of the demons. So the devas, they got weakened by Indra's offense. And so they said they were attacked by powerful snake weapons and so on. And many died, and they could not be revived. Later on we hear different stories, but in this occasion, the demigods were diminished, and it was a big disaster because they lost control practically. And this shows how often the Bhagavatam is giving us accounts of the universal struggle for power and superiority. You know, the Asuric forces against the Zurich forces, the Devatas against the Asuras. And all of them, they aim for domination practically, or a sovereignty. They want to rule or maintain balance and so on. And they end up being even arch enemies, that they have intense even hatred for one another, which is interesting when we look at the nature of a demigod actually, but they come to that point. So then they go to Brahma, because Brahma is usually their shelter. He is the first created being in the universe, and from him practically all the living entities come. And then they go with him to the place which is known as Shvetadvip, the Milk Ocean, within the universe. It's not visible, and even Brahma could not see it, it is said. But he heard from, Prabhupada explains that he heard from Shastra that there is this place. So he went there and he offered prayers. This morning we were speaking about prayers, and systematically he invoked, so to speak, the mercy of the Lord, and then Kshirodakasha Vishnu revealed the Milk Ocean in his own brilliant effulgent form, and then received the requests of the demigods, which were, please help us, we are practically going to be finished by the demons. So then he proposes, well, you're in a not so good position, you should make a pact, or like a truce, this word is maybe T-R-U-C-E, like a pact, a deal with the demons, so that there is some nectar of immortality that will be churned from the Milk Ocean. And he told them what to put in there, like different vegetables, grasses, creepers, and drugs. The word drugs is used, probably some medical herbs that are being put in there. And he tells them already what will come out of the Milk Ocean, and don't be worried about the poison. Don't get too much impressed by the other things. Wait for the nectar. You know, and make a deal with the demons that they work with you together. And at the end, you will receive nectar, but the demons will not. So, and interestingly, what do you think? Who is the head of the demons? Who led the demons in battle? Someone knows? A person which, of course, is very prominent in the Vāmanadeva Lila. Sukracharya is involved, yes. Bali Maharaj, exactly. He was their military leader. He fought them, you know. So he comes, of course, in the line. Virochana is his father's name, and Virochana comes from Prahlad Maharaj. So there's this line. So he is there, and there already some enmity between, of course, the demigods and the demons have been there, like, because they struggled struggled for the sovereignty of the planets. And Bali Maharaj always had a desire that he wanted to rule the universe. That was, let's call it, his anartha. He wanted nothing less than to rule over the whole universe. So the demigods came and made the proposal as Vishnu dictated to them. And Srila Prabhupada mentions that they tried to apply the logic of the snake and the mouse. And he pointed out like a snake and a mouse might get caught up in a basket. Both can get out. So if the snake would simply eat the mouse, also nothing would have been gained. But if the mouse agrees to bite, so to speak, a hole through the basket, so the mouse can get out and the snake too, and the snake thinks, yeah, later on I can eat the mouse. You know, so let me employ the mouse in my service, and later, as a token of gratitude, I will eat her. So similarly, the situation of the demigods was that actually, I mean, all of them, both of them saw themselves in different roles. All of them thought, I will be the snake. I will employ the others in my service. We churn the Milk Ocean, but they don't get the nectar, and if I get the nectar, or we get them, we destroy them. So the demons thought, okay, let's do that. And then we snatch the nectar and we kill the demigods. And the demigods thought, well, yeah, let's get the nectar and then we kill the demons. So snake and mouse logic has been applied there. So this is a whole pastime for itself. It turns out the demons get cheated, and the demigods at that time had been very diminished. Something that happened in between was that in order to churn the Milk Ocean, the demons and demigods had to join forces and lift the Mandara mountain, which is an immense, you can't even name the number, it's so big, like high mountain in the universe, made of pure gold, unbelievably heavy. And all of them, the demigods and demons, they carried it, but they couldn't hold it. And at some point they had to let it go. And in the process, many demons get crushed, and many demigods get crushed, they got killed from Mandara mountain. And there was great calamity. Some were severely hurt, some were dead. And then Vishnu came on Garuda, and Garuda by himself picked up Mandara mountain, and Vishnu glanced over all the demigods and demons and revived them, so that the pastime could continue. So we hear, again, this will continue, like they die and get being brought back to life. So then they journey the milk ocean, everything that happens, happens. And then the demons get cheated, and they get very angry, extremely angry. It said the hatred they bore both for another, like the demigods and demons, were undescribable, and on the shore of the milk ocean a fierce battle arose, where also again many demigods and demons were slain. And it turned out that ultimately Indra was also once, he died actually, but was also again revived by Vishnu, so a few times Vishnu had to intervene, revive the demigods. He managed to defeat Bali actually, and also the demons. And some demons were left, but only because Brahma intervened. It's a bit similar story like with Dhruva Maharaj, who wanted to annihilate the whole race of yakshas and daityas, which are demonic beings. But they said, no, you cannot extinguish all of them. And Narada Muni was employed as the agent, and he made them stop. And the remaining demons brought Bali Maharaj to a place where also Shukracharya was present, and then he revived all the demons, inclusive Bali Maharaj, who were severely hurt. And at that point, or like because of this incident, Bali Maharaj decided to accept Shukracharya as a spiritual master, because he was being revived by him, and out of gratitude, and perhaps he was also quite impressed. Someone just brought me back to life. So he accepted him as guru. So this is a bit the story so far. And then what happens? Bali Maharaj is worshipping his guru properly. And also some descendants of Bhrigu Muni, which is a Brahmana, which is also maybe familiar. It was also in the arena of Daksha. Bhrigu Muni was the head priest even. Yes. Some descendants of him, they were very pleased with Bali Maharaj, and Shukracharya himself too. And they blessed him also with a divine chariot, in particular weapons that enabled him to actually attack the heavenly planets. He also performed a sacrifice. He was instructed by the Brahmins to perform that, but now I have it somewhere here. Anyway, so I forgot the Sanskrit term, but it was a great sacrifice he performed. And then he was ready to meet his old enemy Indra again. And he managed to drive out all the demigods practically from the heavenly planets and took over, in short. So, because we need to get to the Aditi and Keshava Muni part. Since we know, since Aditi is the mother of many demigods, or like divine beings, I didn't find the exact names of to whom she refers, but many of her sons were bereft of their kingdoms, of their residences, and she was greatly distressed by that. So, and actually because of that, she turned to her husband Keshava Muni and saying, listen, what we experience is a great calamity. We have been bereft of our homes, of our wealth, of our powers, of our sons. What can we do? So that was her plea. And Keshava Muni remembered how he had been instructed by Lord Brahma when it was time for him to create progeny, and he instructed his own wife Aditi about the Payo Vrata, which is a Gelübde, a vow, which is practically essentially a lot about, Srila Prabhupada describes it, maybe marked a few notes here. Drinking milk is observing observing like kind of Ekadashi-like austerities, but essentially it's also about worship, about deity worship, and we heard it. Here, let's hear the words from herself as they are quoted in the Srimad Bhagavatam. She says, "The demons, our formidably powerful enemies, have taken away our opulence, our beauty, our fame, and even our residence. Indeed, we have now been exiled, and we are drowning in an ocean of trouble. O best of sages, best of all those who grant auspicious benedictions, please consider our situation and bestow upon my sons the benedictions by which they can regain what they have lost." And then Kashyapa Muni replied first with some philosophical insight where he wondered. He was saying how amazing are the workings of the Supreme Lord in the three modes of nature, and how all this happens like we are puppets on a string. So, but then, of course, also comes to a point where he instructs her about this vow that he received himself from Brahma. And he says, in the bright fortnight of the months of Falguna, February and March, for 12 days, ending with Dvadashi, one should observe the vow of subsisting only on milk, and should worship the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead with all devotion. And Srila Prabhupada, I want to read his purport. Worshipping the Supreme Lord Vishnu with devotion means following Archana Marg. One should install the deity of Lord Vishnu or Krishna and worship him nicely by dressing him, decorating him with flower garlands, and offering him all kinds of fruits, flowers, and cooked food, nicely prepared with ghee, sugar, and grains. One should also offer a flame, incense, and so on, while ringing a bell, as prescribed. This is called worship of the Lord. Here it is recommended that one observe the vow of subsisting only by drinking milk. This is called Payovrata. As we generally perform devotional service on Ekadashi by not eating grains, it is generally recommended that on Dvadashi one not consume anything but milk. Payovrata and Archana, devotional service to the Supreme Lord, should be performed with a pure devotional attitude. Without bhakti, one cannot worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one wants to know the Supreme Personality of Godhead and be directly connected with him, knowing what he wants to eat and how he is satisfied, one must take to the process of bhakti. So, here he instructed her what to do, and there are like, in the following verses, I mean it's too much to recite it, there are all the details, what he says, what to do, but we get a sense of what's happening here, what is Arditi performing. And Arditi is successful, fortunately. It took 12 days. Just imagine sometimes when we do one day fasting, like maybe today, maybe some try severe fast, or maybe not, but so many have tried, certainly. And I know for one day already it's a challenge to just remain with water, for example, or maybe milk. But 12 days and then engage thoroughly in worship and keep your focus. Because of course your energy level might get down first, then gets up again, because if you fast, also your body detoxes, and actually the mind has quite some resources that you are not aware of if we constantly stuff ourselves, so to speak. So Ekadashi is a good way to sober up your body a bit. But to keep it for 12 days, that's quite something, So it said, with full undiverted attention, Aditi thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and in this way brought under full control her mind and senses, which resembled forceful horses. She concentrated her mind upon the Supreme Lord, Vasudeva. Thus she performed the ritualistic ceremony known as Payovrata. And one mantra she received, Kashyapa Muni gave it a particular name, but outspoken is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. She used this mantra to worship the Supreme Lord and was successful with it. My dear King, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, dressed in yellow garments and bearing a conch shell, disc, club and lotus in his four hands, then appeared before Aditi. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead became visible to Aditi's eyes, Aditi was so overwhelmed by transcendental bliss that she at once stood up and then fell to the ground like a rod to offer the Lord her respectful obeisances. And then we have what may remind us, for those who were present in the morning, she was actually not able to pray at first. She first got the benedictions and then she offered prayers to the Supreme Lord, which is also long. I will skip that. And then Vishnu spoke to her, and I like particularly these parts in the Bhagavatam where you hear Lord Vishnu himself speak the lines, how he chooses to respond to the prayers of the devotees. Because we always highlight Krishna as a person. And then of course we must highlight Krishna exchanges himself like a person. He responds, he empathizes, he gives advice, or he makes promises that he also keeps, so on. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Mother of the Demigods, I have already understood your long-cherished desires for the welfare of your sons, who have been deprived of all opulences and driven from their residence by their enemies. O Devi, O Goddess, I can understand that you want to regain your sons and be together with them to worship me, after defeating the enemies in battle and retrieving your abode and opulences. So you might have in mind, Prabhupada said before, of course the motive should be bhakti when you worship. And it might give the impression, but wait a second, she's like into some kind of revenge or getting back something, you know. But the point is, like he said, she wants that because then she feels, with this we can worship Vishnu properly. When family is united, the sons are properly again situated, then we can properly serve Vishnu. So actually her desire was more concentrated on Vishnu. And what I also find interesting, or like not interesting, what is important to look at, Vishnu empathizes with her. Clearly. He lets her know, I know exactly what moves you. I know your heart. And therefore it chose to respond to you. So I'm aware what's going on for you. And that's something that we can take also in our lives. Sometimes people wonder, does God care about me? And yes, He's fully aware of everything that happens in our hearts. Often the question is, do we speak the language that He speaks to us? Do we understand His signs? You know, sometimes we need to focus on that a bit. And then he continues, you want to see the wives of the demons lamenting for the death of their husbands, when those demons, the enemies of your sons, are killed in battle by the demigods, of whom Indra is the chief. You want your sons to regain their lost reputation and opulence and live again on their heavenly planet as usual. So here we see Vishnu is pointing out for us what exactly moved Aditi in her worship. What was her mood, her thoughts, her intention. So she came, we might tend to put her in the category of those who seek relief. Like in the Bhagavad Gita we have these 4 types of devotees. But she's already on a different platform, and she was put in a situation of distress, and then of course came from there, but she was before already situated on a way higher level of jnana. She knew about Vishnu. But now the trigger for her vow was the calamity she was put in. O Mother of the Demigods, in my opinion, almost all the chiefs of the demons are now unconquerable, for they are being protected by Brahmins, whom the Supreme Lord always favors. Thus the use of power against them now will not at all be a source of happiness. And here Prabhupada writes, when a person is favored by Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, no one can defeat him. Even the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not interfere when one is protected by a Brahmana. It is said, Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha. The Lord's first inclination is to give all benedictions to the cows and Brahmanas. And therefore, if Brahmanas favor someone, the Lord does not interfere, nor can anyone interfere with the happiness of such a person. So I find this also a very important detail. He says, well, the demons are, although he's a demon, he's protected by a Brahmin. Because, or like it often happens to us, we have a bit of a black-white understanding of good and bad and demons and demigods, but it seems, why would a Brahmana protect a demon? It's more like there's tendency in every consciousness to go on the demoniac side, but Bali Maharaj was very pious, as what was also shown when Vāmanadeva himself came to him. He was immediately inclined to give charity, because it's Brahminical culture. He was not saying, I don't care about Brahmins, like King Vena or someone. He was very pious, like we even hear of King Charasanda, who was also a great demon. He attacked Krishna 23 times, 24 times. But when they came to his place, okay, they were concealed, or like they tried to appear like Brahmins, though they couldn't really hide it, Bhima and Arjuna. he immediately received them as such, and he was very cultured and was very paying very much attention to how to treat the Brahmin. So, but when it comes to God, they differ in their approach and understanding. So there's even Varnashram Dham. We know we have Devi Varnashram Dham, where the aim is Vishnu, and there's a Varnashram Dham where there's no Vishnu, the atheistic version of it. So there's like 4 categories of people and a certain codex of how to behave, but it doesn't involve so much that you please Vishnu with it. So there is some complexity. And Krishna says, I cannot be Gopramana Hitayacha and at the same time now defeat Bali Maharaj against the blessings of the Brahmins. Then I would contradict myself. So then he says, yet because I have been satisfied by the activities of your vow or goddess Aditi, I must find some means to favor you, for worship of me never goes in vain, but certainly gives the desired result according to what one deserves. You have prayed to me and properly worshipped me by performing the great Payovrata ceremony for the sake of protecting your sons. Because of Kashyapa Muni's austerities, I shall agree to become your son and thus protect your other sons. Always thinking of me as being situated within the body of your husband, Kashyapa, go worship your husband who has been purified by his austerity. O lady, even if someone inquires, you should not disclose this fact to anyone. That which is very confidential is successful if kept secret. That's a general good advice we can take with us. That what is kept secret, or like that what is confidential, and if it's kept secret, will be successful. So that we don't go ahead and say about things we will do, maybe silently plan and do them, they might be successful instead of telling everyone and then you don't do things. So then it goes on, Kashyapa Muni is aware of what's happening in this mystic trance, and then the Leela is, just for the end to mention that when Vishnu appears, he, as we said before, he chooses his agents, and the agents are now Kashyapa Muni and Aditi, and they are pure Vaishnavas. That means their mind is Shuddha Sattva. There's no Rajas, Tamas, or not even mixed Sattva in it. So therefore he appears in the mind of the male devotee, and from there he's being transferred by mystic process. Usually it's called Diksha. The wife is being initiated, means Vishnu is being transferred to the womb or the mind of Aditi, and then places pastime of appearing. And the Bhagavatam describes this as such: O king, as the wind promotes friction between 2 pieces of wood and gus gives rise to fire, Kashyapa Muni, whose transcendental position was fully absorbed in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, transferred his potency into the womb of Aditi. So these were some narrations and thoughts on the events that led to the appearance of Vāmanadeva. So it's always quite fascinating how things build up. The 8th canto is full of so many pastimes, and we can see they have all connection. There's a whole history of Bali and Indra, and how like so many people get involved, like Aditi and Kashyapa Muni and Vishnu. So many times he has to get involved, but protecting. He enjoys it himself, of course. Yes. Are there any comments or questions? Sharings. Just a microphone so that they online can hear it.
In Bhagavad Gita says also that I think that anger and too much adversity is also a little bit demoniac. How could this demigod so much go into this angry mood? This is a question.
Well, yeah, that's a certainly meaningful question. When we see the pastime, based on the pastime, what we can see is they were confronted with great enmity from the side of the demons at first. And we must also consider that demigods are not automatically pure devotees. It is said in the mode of goodness they also describe themselves, we have bodies of Sattva-gun, minds of Sattva-gun. So they're on a way higher level. At the same time, the Bhagavad Gita also describes how the condition that goes along with Sattva-guna is a sense of happiness, I'm doing well, but also then there's pride, I'm better than others. So and a person who has, like Indra, like we heard in the beginning, how he offended Durvasa Muni out of pride. A person who develops the quality of pride is more vulnerable to being offended or humiliated because his expectation is greater. And also, it's said in the heavenly planets, there's a lot of attachment also possible. That's why people like Bali Maharaj want to conquer that place. It offers a lot of enjoyment, and of course there's struggle for domination. So, and since material desires, if I'm attached and think something is mine, and someone unrightfully tries to take it and uses violence, that of course causes a reaction. And it said particularly the demons were actually extremely angry, but then also of course the demigods joined in because they were confronted with this immense anger. The demons were of course much more hateful, but also this is the mood when they fight. You see also among Kshatriyas, when you read the battle of Kurukshetra, what happens there, like in what mood these Kshatriyas get, and how they fight, and what happens, and what they do to each other. Yeah, that's the mode of passion arises then. You know, if there's fighting, then mode of passion must be there. Without anger, there is no fighting. And if it gets intense like that, then of course also the mode of tamas comes in. That would be my understanding. And there are different levels of demigods as well. Brahma is, for example, very sublime. He does not get so much affected, but the lesser the demigods are, the more they get affected.
Hare Krishna, you mentioned the Shastric evidence for the incarnations must be there, that they are accepted. This is what Prabhupada says, but at the same time he also writes in the Bhagavatam that not all the incarnations are mentioned, like you also said, there's so many incarnations, so how do we understand that?
Yeah, we have a version of the Bhagavatam which is editor's cut, in a sense. We have, for example, the demigods, they have a bigger Bhagavatam than we have. They have different capacity. So we are limited to 18,000 shlokas, is it correct? Yeah. The Bhagavatam, and the most prominent incarnations are mentioned, the Das avatars and so on, which come repeatedly. And also, of course, also in this story, some others, like there's in the 8th canto also the incarnation of Vaikuntha is mentioned. Vishnu comes with the name Vaikuntha, and as one particular pastime is based on a desire of Lakshmi Devi, he manifested another extra Vaikuntha planet for her. And there's there's Yakya, form of Vishnu that was mentioned in connection to also in the 4th canto with Daksha, and when the lines, you know, the descendancy was mentioned. So Samad Shashtoti mentioned, yes. Well, it might pose a challenge if one person picks particularly a form of Vishnu that is not elaborately mentioned in the Shastra. But then there are other symptoms, you know, there must be which marks on the body, like which are given in Shastra, and then also character, and so yeah, but be very careful with that. Yeah. Alright. Then it's 8 o'clock. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Vāmanadeva Mahotsava ki jai.